Once you have written down the objectives, the specifications, and the requirements of this proposed software system, the next thing that we're going to do is design a UML diagram. UML stands for Unified Modeling Language. And a UML diagram, there are dozens and dozens of different types of diagram. As a matter of fact, if you turn to page 441 in your book, you're going to see an example of a use case diagram. There is a class diagram on 442 and a sequence diagram at the bottom of page 442. There are dozens of different types of diagrams, and each one of them serves a very specific purpose to define the functionality of the system. What we're going to use is a UML Use Case Diagram, and the point of this is to model the major business processes or the major functionality of a system. It's like giving us a visual representation of the system. Think of it where your architect comes up with the blueprints for your house, but I can't read architectural blueprints, and so he creates a disk that has a visual 3D representation of my home in full color. That's an example of a UML Use Case Diagram. There's a variety of different software tools that we can use to create UML diagrams. We're going to be using Microsoft Visio in this class, or for this particular activity. You can use Rational Rows as another one. Lucid Charts is another one. If you don't have Microsoft Visio, which by the way you can get free from Microsoft because you're a student here at Weber State, we are going to use Microsoft Visio. And so I have pulled up my version of Visio, and what I'm going to do is go to the software category. And under the software category, I'm going to look for something called a UML Use Case Diagram. I should be able to distinguish it visually because it should have some ovals, and then it should have some icons that look like people, stick figures or people. And so I'm just going to create a blank UML Use Case Diagram. There are several components that make up a use case diagram. There are actors, use cases, and then there are the relationships between them. Actors are the people or the things that interact with our system, either put information into it or receive information out of it. The use cases are the major business functionalities. This is the functionality of the system. For our purposes in this class, we're going to use that bulleted list of the 6 to 8 features that your group came up with in the first step of the software design document. And so a use case diagram, I'm going to drag and drop actors onto my screen. An actor is a role that someone plays, not them by name. So I'm not going to say James and John and Sally. Instead, let's say, for instance, that we have a clerk. So if I click on the icon for the actor, it should allow me to give the actor a name. And so I'm going to name it the role that it plays. We should probably have a customer as well. All right, the use cases are the ovals, the blue ovals. I'm going to drag some blue ovals on here. This would be the major functionality. So let's say, for instance, that this is a music store. If I click on one of the use cases, I should be able to give the use case a name. Now, one of the things that I want to clarify about the name of a use case is that it should be a verb, noun, phrase. It is a functionality. It is a feature, something that the software does. Therefore, it should be a verb, noun. We should be able to add music. Add is a verb, but what are we adding? Are we adding cars? Are we adding people? Are we adding music? And music is just a noun. What are we doing to it? Are we adding it, deleting it, buying it, inventorying it? And so what we need, each one of my use cases needs to have a short and a descriptive verb, noun, phrase. So let's say delete. Maybe another one of the things is major functionality within my music store should be able to delete music, and then finally we should be able to select music. And then we should be able to buy music. So let me drop another one on here. Alright, so I have 2 actors and I have 4 use cases. The next component are the relationships. These are just literally lines between the actors and the use cases that they should be a part of or involved in. And so what I can do is I should be able to click an actor, and it will draw a line from the actor to the use case that it is associated with. Alright, so a clerk should be able to delete music, and let's say, for instance, that a clerk should also be able to select music. A customer, on the other hand, if I highlight the customer and I However, around the outside I see the blue arrows. A customer should definitely be able to select music, and a customer should also be able to buy music. I'm going to move this use case down so that I can clearly see the lines that are connecting the individual use cases to the actors. Now, as you can see, actors can be involved in more than one use case, and use cases can have more than one actor connected to them. So the third part of a system, or the third component of a use case diagram, is called the boundary. And in Microsoft Visio, I'm going to use something called the subsystem. And so I'm going to drag and drop a subsystem over top of the use cases themselves. The boundary is indicating the bounds or the scope of my software system. Actors are always on the outside interacting with my system, and all of the use cases go on the inside. And so I'm going to drag and drop it onto the screen. If it is sitting over top and I can't see the ones behind it, I should be able to push that symbol to the back so that I can see the use cases that it's sitting over top of. And I see if I click on it, click on that subsystem, that I should be able to give it a name. We'll call it Music Store. This is an example of a use case diagram. It is made up of use cases, which are major business functionalities. It's made up of actors. Those are the people or the processes that interact with my system, either receiving information from it or putting information into it. And then we have a boundary. And the boundary clearly displays what is inside of the system and what is outside of the system. So I'm going to have each member of your group create their own use case diagram based upon the bulleted list of features that your group came up with in step 1. You can brainstorm as a group who the actors might be for your particular system. Remember, there are people that put information in or receive information out of your system. You can brainstorm with the other members, but I want each one of the members of your group to create your own use case diagram. Then you're going to upload that to the file section of your group homepage.